to believe that there's no.
Amen. Can you all hear me all right? Kind I'm Charles Redwine, and I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist here in this state since 1993. I'm also a licensed addictions counselor. So my entire life I've just done one thing, and that's try to work with people that are in crisis or people going through mental health issues or addiction issues. And I have to look back and ask myself, well, how in the world did I get here? One, I want to thank the church for opening opportunities to talk about some real tough issues. You know, sometimes you go to church, you just go for the social reason, but there are things of the heart that we have to get down to. There are things of the heart that we need to. And one of the reasons it's important to me is for our children. I'll tell you today that there's more anxiety among children than I think I've ever seen before. There's confusion. They don't know what to do, know what to think. And they oftentimes look to who? The adults to have the answers. So what I want to do tonight is be able to, over the next 4 weeks, is unpack this topic, these two topics of anxiety and depression. But you may ask, well, why you? How could you give a discussion on? Yes, I'm a licensed therapist, and I have a doctorate in ministry from Asbury Seminary, so I've always been a theological therapist or a therapeutic theologian. I've always believed there's a balance in life, and God wants us to have that balance, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, and we have to attain that. But it all started for me back as a child. I would like to let you know my mother she was a professional anxiety person. And I tell you, I lived under that for years. And if you've ever lived under someone who's constantly anxious, now my mother, bless her heart, never went past 8th grade. I'm a hillbilly. I'm from a small town in Southern Illinois. And my mother never went higher than 8th grade, never had a job in her life. So her primary thing was just to be at home. When you walk in the door, there she was laying on the couch because she hardly got up and did anything. And she worried about everything. Do you know anyone like that? And so there was a time in my life, even as a young man, it was so hard to be in the home. And I remember one example specifically. I was probably 5 years old. And we were living in an apartment up in Vandalia, Illinois. My dad worked for the prison there. And as we were sitting there in the house, we had a cat. I don't like cats. If you're a cat person, God bless you. Give me a dog every day. Actually, when I do my assessments, people have to come in and do mental health stuff. Like, I got to go have a mental health assessment. Always at the end say, I have a very important clinical question to ask you. Are you a dog person or a cat person? You can see the faces light up. Well, faces don't light up for me for cats. And so we had this cat, and something went wrong with our cat. Our cat went crazy, and it was running around the little apartment, screaming and squealing. And my mother freaked out. She didn't know what to do. She had myself and my sister. We were on the couch, and she was screaming. She was holding as tight as she could, screaming, ah, ah. I remember sitting there as a small 5-year-old boy saying, Mother, open the door and let the cat out. Mother, just let me go. I'll go let the cat out. Mother, just let me open the... No, he may kill you. No, we can't. And I had to sit there while she crushed me. And I said that day that I would never let my mom have emotional control over me. We're all very tied into our mothers, right? A different relationship. I did not have that relationship with my mom because of that day. I began to hold her off. Because if she couldn't handle a cat, how could she handle me? So she had to call my dad, who left the prison, drove all the way home, opened the door, and the cat ran out. That marked me that day. Because she couldn't handle the basic thing in life. And I wasn't going to have her handle me. So I had one of those mothers that was so anxious and so worried about everything that everything was an illness. I was anemic as a child. You can't play sports, you can't play basketball, you can't do this, you can't do that. Oh my gosh, you have hay fever, oh my gosh. And I used to plot. I had a little calendar I kept my next medical appointment in. I had to go get my blood tested for sports or whatever it was. And then I went to the library and I did research on high iron foods. And because I always had to go and help Mom do the shopping, I would go to the store and go, hey, Mom, can we get this? Hey, Mom, can you buy that? And I would stock up all these high iron things and I would eat and drink them for 2 weeks before my blood test. And go in there and I wasn't anemic, I could go play sports. But think about that. I'm at a young age plotting to defeat my mother's anxiety. I was doing this at age 7, 8, 9. So living under the mantle of anxiety to the point where I was a teenager, I couldn't drive yet, so I bought my own bicycle, and I was gone. Every Sunday after church, I was gone. I was riding my bike all through the country, anything to do to stay away from the house. Not because I didn't love my mother, but I couldn't rest with her. And anxiety has a way, if you are being anxious, what happens to the people around you? Their anxiety goes up. So I spend most of my career talking to people about taking their anxiety level down because of the impact it has upon your children. So in my small town, 250 people in southern Illinois, we had one alcoholic and we had one crazy man. I knew them both. We only had one of each. Now Ray Lowell was one whose anxiety got him so bad. And I worked with him on the town. I worked at age 14 and 15 using a briar scythe. You ever see those things? Two-handled briar scythe, cutting all the weeds off on town. It was a federal program that put us to work. So the federal government paid me to chop weeds at age 14. Ah, the good old days. And as we were out there, Ray Lowell had gotten his kids in his car because his wife had said she was going to leave him. And so he got his children in the car, drove to the railroad tracks, locked the car doors, put his children in the same type of hold as my mother did, and waited there for a train to come to kill them. Someone told his wife, she came down, got the kids out of the car, she left, and they never saw them again. I spent 2 summers working with Ray Lowell, and as I was out there chopping as a kid, 14-year-old, he'd be talking to himself, and he says, "Redwine, you think I'm crazy?" I said, "No, Ray Lowell, I don't know if you're crazy. You talk to yourself a lot." I tried to unpack, even at a young age, what are you so anxious? What are you so anxious about? What are you so worried about? Why do you constantly struggle with this? And what I saw and have seen through the years, folks, is God intends for us to be at what? At peace. We throw our peace away. We'd rather spend more time and energy worrying and fretting and obsessing than pursuing that peace that God wants for us. Agreed? So what we're going to unpack tonight, and it's kind of a startup, is we're going to talk about all the things that lead toward depression. And we're not going to just talk about anxiety because there's a lot of components about anxiety that we need to talk about before we get there. So we're going to look, though, as we finish this, on life lived in the soul. Now, when I have that up there, what do you think that means? What does it mean when you hear life lived in the soul?
You're present.
Excuse me?
You're present.
You're present.
You're inner being.
Inner being. Mm-hmm.
I think it's all the pain you go through and how your soul develops.
Do you believe that your spiritual life is just as strong and just as potent as your physical life and just as strong and as potent as your emotional life? But oftentimes when a crisis hits or something hits, where do we live at? We live in the physical and we live in the emotional. We set aside the what? The spiritual. So we're going to get on Facebook or Instagram and we're going to say, "Please pray for me." We're going to do a physical thing out there, let people know that you need prayer. We're going to call somebody, get them on the phone. Oh my goodness, can't believe this just happened. So we tend to live out our anxiety where? We may even know some people that emotionally vomit every once in a while. You ever been around someone like that? Because we want to live our lives out here in the physical and in the emotional, but what we set aside is we don't realize we need to live back here in the soul area. I come to this conclusion because I work with a lot of children. I work with a lot of kids that have had a lot of trauma. I worked with a lot of teenagers. The majority of my career I was with in residential care, working with some really tough kids. I always knew that if I could just get them to cry, get down to that level, get past the physical, you can't make me do it, down to that emotional, maybe I'll give in to you, but also get down to that soul level. I just had this a couple weeks ago. You ever have one of those cries where you cried out at the very depths of your soul? Not the usual crying because you saw a movie or crying because you heard bad news. But there's that time when you can get down and you can cry down at that very soul level. And it's so deep and it's so powerful, you cannot shut it off or stop it. You can't control it. But there's something that comes out of that soul, something that comes out that deep of your pain or out of your sorrow, and it is a powerful cry that will leave you drained and exhausted and sleeping, but also at peace. Because finally you've reached that point in your soul where what has come out of you has been the real issue, your greatest fear. I'm honored to be able to take children, sometimes as young as 8 and 10, 12 years old, to that point where I get that kind of cry. Then I can start doing some real work. I could tell you a couple of crazy stories, and I might as we go through the weeks, but let's just kind of unpack and move toward living in the soul. Come on now, there you go. So I want to ask you this, Philippians 4:6. So we have this statement as it begins. We're going to look at this verse later more thoroughly. But the word says, be anxious for nothing. Wow. Okay, that settles it. We can go home now. The word says it, I believe it. Be anxious for nothing. After I left college, I determined to spend 1 year taking one scripture, living it out fully for that entire month. And I did 12 over a 12-month period. And one of the scriptures I chose was this one. Be anxious for nothing. Now what does that mean? And how hard or easy is it to do that? Oh, I'm running late. Be anxious for nothing. Wonder why he's not back on time. Be anxious for nothing. If you were to stop and think every single time you're anxious in a day over anything, how many times do you have to put a little mark down in making those 5 bars? I don't think we realize the power of this scripture that says be anxious for nothing. What am I going to eat tonight for supper? Be anxious for nothing. I hope we get to the church on time before that guy starts talking. Be anxious for nothing. I lived this out for 1 entire month, checking myself in my spirit. Am I anxious? Am I uptight? Am I worrying? This was the hardest one that I did. Because I don't think we realize when we let our mind wander and rush and flow, how many times we're really worrying or being anxious about something. Would you agree? So we're going to look at that. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at the mind, because that's really where our problems are. But in everything, now we're going to expand this out a little bit later, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So every time you get anxious, start being thankful. Now let's put it down into a little bit different perspective. Some of you here may be married. And if you're married, you can probably tell when the other person in the relationship may be anxious. What do you think? Now, I'm not saying you want to go and say you're being anxious. You need to be thankful. But wouldn't it be incredible if as a couple you could prompt yourself when you're being anxious and not to really stop and say, let's be thankful for this moment right now. What we're talking about here is retraining our mind, isn't it? We are so used to being anxious and worried about things. I have a lovely wife. She is the detail person. She is the worrier. She is the anxious one. Guess who's not? We have to complement each other. But I think it's really good that I don't worry about things she worries about. She may worry about money. Here's what I say. Yeah, it's only money. So let's look at the beginnings. Where do we really start at? There are different components of anxiety, right? Stress, worry, concern, fret, holidays, weddings. Anybody here ever have to plan a wedding or any stress with that? Yeah. How about family reunions? Having everybody over at your house. Any stress with that? Is stress normal? How many here have ever had to take ACT, SAT, GRE, licensing tests? Any stress with that? But doesn't stress in many ways, doesn't it sharpen you up? Make sure you study. Get ready for that day that's coming. Make sure you eat well, sleep well. So stress can be a good thing, right? But then there's another level to it, where we find angst and anguish and worry. We begin to overthink. Anyone here have problems with overthinking? Raise your hands high. Hallelujah, I overthink. Now, why is that a problem? Why is overthinking and being obsessive in your thoughts a problem? I'm just being attentive. I'm just taking it seriously. Why is it a problem?
You know, calm yourself to listen to God and give the answer.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trusting God to take care of it.
Oh, you guys are getting ahead of me. You're right on.
Probably kind of control.
Mm-hmm. Control. It really comes down to trust, power. Do I really believe in what I believe? Where do I place my faith? How do I apply my faith in this situation? How do I let God work and me not? Because sometimes we have problems with our thinking and get obsessive in our thoughts because we think we can figure it out. We think we're just stinking smart enough to be able to solve this problem. But there are some problems, no matter how hard you think or how much sleep you lose over while you're thinking about it, how much dedication that may show in your life, that does not mean you will be able to solve one stinking thing. Nor will any of it actually make it better. Anyone here worried about something and fretted about something so much that you didn't sleep for 1 or 2 days? You lost sleep over it. You couldn't go to work. In other words, it might be that whatever this is that we put so much time and energy into becomes a false god to us. It becomes an idol that we bow down and worship to. We spend time on it. We invest energy in it. We bow down to it. We let it dominate our day. That sounds like God. We actually will take things, even in our own minds, and turn it into false idols to worship. So sometimes we'll go up, so we're going to have to look at this overthinking and obsessive thoughts. Because we're not even to anxiety really yet. We're getting there. You see where it begins? Now, it may be that, again, there are causes for stress. There are things that produce anxiety. But are they to be long-term or short-term? I received a call from a man that I had known ever since he was a small boy down in the Dominican Republic where I used to live and work. He and his brother were twins, and they were shoeshine boys down there. They used to come up the mountain, and I'd put out the shoes, and they'd shine them, and I'd overpay them, and I really liked the two boys. I got to know their whole family, was able to help get the sister who had a severe heart problem to the United States with one of the Hope Projects and be able to get the surgery she needed to be able to come back. But she didn't, and no matter what I said, she didn't take her meds, and she ended up dying young in her 20s. The other brother was walking away from the police station down there, or in the community. The police were telling him to stop, and he wouldn't stop, so they shot him in the back and they killed him. The other sister was trying to get into the United States across the southern border illegally, got dropped off by one of the mules that had charged them a lot of money. She was lost out in the desert, died, and they found her body out there where she's dehydrated and died. Yeah, I believe in the border wall. It saves people's lives. And so I'm left with these two young men, and I sent one of them off to school so they could become a mechanic and work and learn and help them build their homes, and they've just been important to me as they've grown up into manhood. And so I was here in Indiana, and I got a call from Rafaelito, and Rafaelito had called saying, "I'm so mad I do not know what to do. My son just died." He had an 18-month-old that had died. He'd gotten into the United States illegally using somebody else's visa in New York City, where many of them go. And he was there, and he had taken his 18-month-old son to New York Hospital, and his son had pneumonia, and his son had died. He was so mad. This can't happen. This doesn't happen in the United States. There are good doctors here. There are good hospitals here. I'm going to go into that hospital. I'm going to kill those doctors, and I'm going to kill those nurses. I got him on the phone. He's telling me he's going to go kill the doctors in New York Hospital. I say, do you have a Bible? Well, listen, folks, is that stress? Is that angst? What does sometimes stress and angst, anxiety do to us? It makes us angry, right? We get angry. This isn't fair. This isn't right. We want to do something. And for him, he wanted to go in there and kill somebody. So I said, do you have a Bible in your house? He's not a Christian. He's not going to church, nothing like that. He said, a Bible? Let me see. Hollered to his wife, do we have a Bible here? Yeah, the Mormons stopped by the other day and gave us one. Let me get it. I said, no, not that kind of Bible. No, so I went to the store down in Marion. I was living down there at that time. Got a Bible in Spanish and English. Overnighted it to him. Said, for the next 30 days, I'm going to assign you a psalm to read. I'm going to call you every night at 10:30, and we're going to talk about that psalm. And I took him through the Psalms on the anguish that David had, the praise that he had. We walked through 30 days of the Psalms as it took away his pain and his anger and his acceptance of the death of his son. The last time I was in the Dominican Republic, I went down by his house, and he was there. Both brothers were there. It was kind of funny, because usually they're back and forth to the United States. He said, I want you to come for lunch. I want you to come for lunch. So I went down there for lunch. He says, come here, I want to show you something in my bedroom. So I went back into his bedroom. He says, you see that right there? There on his dresser. There's that Bible you gave me. And every day, before I get up and start my day, I get up out of the bed, I get the Bible, and I open it, and we read the Bible every day in bed with my wife before we start our day. I will never walk into life without the Word now. This is an unbeliever to just take him into the Word of God in times of great angst and anger. It transforms, folks. Why? Because I couldn't deal with the physical. I wasn't even in the same town. I was in Indiana. He was in New York. I couldn't deal with the emotional and tell him it'll be okay, you'll feel better. So what power did I have? It's a spiritual. And understand that we get caught up in the physical and the emotional as well, don't we? So what we're going to look at over the next 4 weeks is how do we get back to the spiritual, to the real power when we are in the midst of dealing with all this physical and emotional stuff. But at times we may panic, feel overwhelmed, feel distraught. We begin to avoid, to isolate, to shut down, to run. I just have to get away. Where are you at? I just have to get away. We take off. We disappear. Maybe sometimes getting away is going to the bar, to the tavern, and getting drunk. Maybe sometimes getting away is actually leaving the relationship that we're in because we don't want to bring more pain, and so we actually avoid the people that we love, or even leave our own families. Have anyone here ever been overwhelmed to this point? You're distraught. You're so broken and torn, you don't know where to go or what to do. And maybe something has happened, so you're too embarrassed to even come to the church because you don't know what the pastor would think. I know Vicky's here to help me, but I'm not sure what she would think if I really came and told her. So out of our embarrassment, we leave the church, or we walk away from the church, or we don't go to the church where the main spiritual what is power. We avoid it and try and deal with it ourselves. One of the reasons that we have this type of class is that we are here to help. We're here to be a part of what is needed, to support you with the spiritual power you need during these times. Amen? We have to understand as a church that we're not in this alone. Do you think God wants you stressed and worried and filled with anxiety and angst and anguish, and He wants you to be panicked and overwhelmed and distraught? Is that the kind of God you want to serve? Anybody? No. That's not why we come to the Lord. But then we have to deal with this. Fear. When you hear the word fear, what do you think about?
For me personally, I was hit by a motorcycle on my way to work, and fear for me was actually crossing the street by myself again after that. So I think fear is something that's common to you, and then you can't do it anymore. And then it causes anxiety because your brain doesn't give your legs or your hands movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think of safe. But fear to me is that I couldn't do it. And it took a long time for me to reprogram my brain to cross the street on my own. I just wanted to share that.
Anybody else? What does fear mean to you?
Loss.
Loss? Not having control. So when we say the term anxiety, there's a whole lot that goes into that, isn't there? It's more than just saying I'm an anxious person. We may be reacting to stress or stressor. We may really feel anguish. We may be to the point of being overwhelmed and being completely distraught and feeling like a complete failure. See, so it's not just for us to talk about anxiety, but each one of these things is impacted by how we respond to them. How we respond to them, how we react to them. So we have to unpack that as well, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. And I want to talk about fear and unpack it a little bit, because fear will just stop us in our tracks. I'm afraid to trust in a relationship. I'm afraid to go out in public. That's what drove my mother. She didn't want people to see her. When I graduated from grade school, I had valedictorian. I mean, there was only 20 of us folks, so don't be too impressed. And that's the last time she went out and saw me. She never went to any of my basketball games in high school. She couldn't do it. Couldn't handle the crowds. So she went and she was able to be there and hear my valedictorian speech. But as soon as I was done, she was out of the building and back home. Fear controlled my mother. I want to see her free. So what is fear? Nope, we're not going to go to that one yet. Stress is a response to a threat in a situation. And I printed off all this. We're not going to get through all of this book tonight, but I wanted to do it more of a 3-ring binder so I can add some sheets to it as we go. And there are a couple of handouts I didn't put in there. One on stress, anxiety, comparisons, anxiety and depression. It's in the back there on the table. And another on the impact upon children that I have, that if you want, I have a few copies of it back there. But stress is a response to a threat in a situation. If you're threatened, shouldn't you respond? Anybody here ever been held at gunpoint? Besides me. We got one in the back. Rob and I, we're standing up, man. Had a gun held to my head. Had 2 men come to my house with guns, shotguns fired at me. I had never experienced fear and dread like that before. Especially since I had to run down out of the mountain, run down the hill, carrying my daughter in my arm. Barefooted, escaping because they didn't know I had a back door in my house. It's amazing, though, as I carried my daughter down, and I was thinking they were going to chase after us. My daughter said, "Daddy, why are you afraid? The angels are watching over us." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, when they came and looked at the door and saw you, there was an angel standing there by the back door." Why should I be afraid? That's what my oldest daughter told me as I ran down the hill. Daddy, an angel was standing there. Oh, through the eyes of a child. So we should react when there's a stressor, right? We should react when there's a threat or a situation. That's normal. That's how we are wired physically to respond in that way. So it's normal to have a reaction. And it affects everyone. This is normal, folks. Not all stress is bad. True? But somehow stress can develop and grow in our mind or in our thinking until all of a sudden we've turned stress into a problem. Doesn't have to be a problem. It's part of life. How many of you had stress today? Wow. I have some staff I work with. They are stressed out about this coronavirus. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What happens? What happens? I said, chronic stress can lead to health problems. Do you aware of that? Stress can lead to health problems. I started working with people in stress when I was 18 as an ambulance attendant. I spent my entire life working with people in crisis. My entire life. I also realized that I'm very high risk for chronic health problems because I've always been in stress. I've always been in stress. I've always had crises around me. So I've taken it very seriously to stay physically fit. 14 years ago, I began training in martial arts. I'm a 4th degree black belt. I go to the gym. I like going to the gym. My daughter put up a thing on Facebook the other day saying, you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you realize some people get up at this time just to go exercise. And she sent that to me. I said, yeah, so? Because if I don't take care of me in the field that I'm in, if I don't take care of me, what's going to happen? The same is true for you. If you have a lot of stress in your life, what does it mean to do good self-care? When When I say those two words with a little hyphen in them, self-care, what does that mean to you?
Well, say if we do it right, again, it goes back to things we talked about before, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You're working on all those areas.
Take care of yourself physically. You ever get such high anxiety moments in your life, you just, well, I'm not going to go to church. I don't feel like it. I'm too stressed. What? Hello. Isn't that the time you're supposed to go? I'm too emotionally distraught. I don't think I could face people in church today. What? If we don't take care of ourselves physically. Now, what do we mean by that? What's good physical self-care, folks? What's it for you? There's a whole lot of you aren't talking out here yet.
Getting plenty of sleep.
Get plenty of sleep. Even if you're stressed.
Try to eat the right foods and don't do the sugary foods. Try to eat a healthy diet.
Eat a healthy diet.
Exercise.
Exercise. You mean to tell me we already know these answers? Exercise, eat well, get plenty of rest. You know, those three things will get you off a lot of medications. Did I just say that? Those three things can get you off a lot of medication. If we do proper self-care. But what happens typically when we get into a crisis in our life, things begin to fall apart, do we do those three things? Because we really don't think we can. We're too overwhelmed to be able to do it. No, I can't right now. I don't want to get up and go to the gym. Oh, I don't want to cook. I'm too stressed, so I'm just going to eat whatever. I can't sleep. I can't shut my mind off. I'll get up and I'll binge watch Netflix. So we're doing what? We're dealing with the physical, we're dealing with the emotional, but what are we avoiding? Spiritual. Anxiety is a response to the stress. So if you don't handle the stress response well, all of a sudden now anxiety is kind of come out as a response to the stress you're going through. Now what have you done? Well, now you moved your stress, which is normal part of life, very common, everyone goes through it. But when we don't deal with our stress in healthy ways and take good care of ourselves during these times, all of a sudden anxiety begins to show up. Can you think back at a time when that happened for you? Where you couldn't just let it go? Break up in a relationship is a hard one. I mean, that's a part of life. Divorce is a hard one. What can I need to do? How can I fix this? How can I get this better? What can I do? We run it through our mind. We won't sleep, right? If we don't handle the stress, anxiety is the response. Before I moved up here to Fort Wayne, I was living down in Marion, Indiana. And we were having a year-long, 24-hour-a-day prayer chain. And it went for months, folks. And I was only 2 blocks from the church, so I took the 2 a.m. slot. And I go in there and spend an hour and pray, and you have to go up and hit a buzzer, and the other person that's there would come let you out. So at 2 o'clock one morning, I went in there and I buzzed, and the man from 1 o'clock met me, and the man from midnight met me. And these are 2 older gentlemen, and they came running and go, "Oh, we're so glad you're here." I said, "What's going on?" There's a woman that came in. She's in the prayer room. We don't know what's going on. We're so glad you're here. We don't know what to do. So I'm walking back there, and guess as soon as I walked back, guess what they did? "We're done, bye, glad you're here." So I walk into the prayer room, and there's a young lady. She's only 22, 23 years of age. And she's down on the floor. We had an incredible prayer room. We had chairs and benches and tables and a whole system of prayer that you could do in there. She had everything down off the wall, everything off the table. She was organizing it on the floor. I went, "Whoa, this is interesting." I said, "Hi there. My name's Redwine. Who are you? Found out she was a member of the church. She was a social worker in our community there. And she was talking very rapidly. I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done. I don't know what it is. I've got to get this done. Please help me. Just get this done. I said, whoa, how long has it been since you slept? 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. I said, I think I know what's happening here. You're a little manic right now. I said, how old are you? 23, 23, 23. I said, I tell you what, since you've not slept for 3 days, let me organize all this and put it up. Why don't you just go over there on the couch and just kind of see if you can. I was talking soothing, I was doing some meditation stuff with it, and I almost got to fall asleep 2 or 3 times. Because I know that once the brain loses sleep for 2 or 3 days, you begin to hallucinate. You begin to not think. There is no rational thought. There is no rational thought if you haven't slept for 3 or 4 days. Self-care, physical. So I continued to work, and I was there from 2 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning. I finally had to leave, and I had to call her parents. So I'm down and I'm working with her, and I'm talking to her. I said, do you know what's happening to you? She said, no. I said, this is the onset of bipolar. You're in a manic phase, which means you've been quite depressed here before this happened. Has it ever happened before? She goes, once. One day. So you've never had it happen this long? No. I said, why did you come to the church? The voices. I said, what were the voices telling you? Get the knife. So you're in your apartment in a manic phase after having slept for 2 or 3 days, and the voices begin to tell you to kill yourself. Yes, you start crying. And you knew the church had a 24-hour presence in this community for prayer. You knew the only safe place you could go at night was to the church. Spiritual power, folks? I said besides, I'm so glad you came here to the church. And there's no error that I came on at 2 o'clock to be here with you. I spent 6 hours trying to bring her down. I finally had to call her parents in Ohio, just across the border. They came over and got her. I said she's going to have to be hospitalized. They have to get her balanced out with some, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. Once they get her on meds, she'll settle back down. She'll be fine. About a month later, I was at church, and she came walking up to me. She goes, I just want to thank you. Who are you? I said, well, my name's Redwine. And what you're going through doesn't scare me. I have no fear when I see someone doing this. You life can get out of balance. For you act out of character, you act in ways that aren't really like yourself. You say things you don't mean because we get out of balance. And when we allow our stress then to move over here into our reaction to our stress is anxiety, all you're doing is digging yourself a hole. And it's going to get so deep where you say, I don't know how I can get out of here. And that's when we begin to get suicidal sometimes. Maybe it's better if I just wreck this car if I just stand it. I don't know if anyone here has ever been in that situation. You just feel like you want to give up. You ever been there? It's painful, folks. That's the time when you just feel like you just want to quit. I sat in my office in Indiana, down in Marion, and I get a call from Lafayette saying, hey, former client of yours, he's in his garage and he has a noose hung up. He had declared bankruptcy on his business. He was closing out his house. His wife took the daughter and said, I'm leaving you. That's pretty distraught. That's a lot of stress, isn't it? And he made a noose, hung it on the rafter, garage door was open, said there was a stool and a chair. People were driving by. He reached out and called the person in Lafayette. They called me and said, can you get down there as fast as you can? Flew down to Anderson, walked into the garage. Man, you did a pretty nice noose there. Do you mind if I take that thing down? Matter of fact, you did such a good job. You mind if I have it? I locked it in the trunk of my car. I spent the rest of the day with him, closing out his dream house. walking away from it. I understand crisis. I understand being at that level. I understand being down there, folks. But there is hope, and we can't allow our stress our anxiety begins to build. You can see where I'm going, don't you? Because out of anxiety is going to come what? We can learn to handle it at the stress level. We can prevent a lot of problems for ourselves at the anxiety level. You agree? So I'm kind of laying out a framework for you here this week. You still tracking with me? How we handle our response to anxiety is key. Philippians 4, be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing. I don't know how many times I have been driving down the road and quoted that verse out loud in the car. Red wine, be anxious for nothing. You believe it? And quit worrying about it. That's your question. Anybody here ever been fired from a job? Or had your job disappear? Does it create any stress? Or do you believe God's got a plan? Can you walk through the stress and say, okay, God's got a plan in this? Maybe you've heard the C word, cancer. Or heard it in your family, I'm sure you have. Creates stress, doesn't it? But when life's lived at the soul, there's a different perspective on cancer, there's a different perspective on losing a job. There can even be a different perspective at times, like for my friend who lost a child. When you live life at the soul level. Ooh, we're going deep, aren't we? So the top life stresses are death of a spouse or loved one, divorce, moving, major illness or injury, job loss, detention in jail or prison. So in your notebook, you're going to find in the folder here on the side a stress test. I'd like for you all to pull it out. If you don't have another one, we'll get you another one. And I want you to take this test. Not the anxiety test. That's for next week. The Holmes Life Stress Inventory, which is the blue one. I want you to take time. If some of you got just one, we'll get you another copy of it. I want everybody to have a copy of it. I want you to take the stress test inventory. Does anyone not have a copy? Do you have a book? You want to take it? So, you have one, you just need one more? Raise your hand if you don't have a copy of it. My beautiful assistant will help you. And one more up here. Two more. There are pens available if you need one. Look back on your last year. This covers what kind of stressors did you have in this last year? And it will give you kind of a read on whether or not you had a rough year or not. He doesn't have one here. He doesn't have one here. Anybody need a pen? Bring me a cup. To go through it, mark it, just look at your life. Now we're going to have you each one by one come up here and explain your sheet. Oh, I just produced anxiety. No, we're not going to do that. Mark down the point value of each of the life events that has happened to you during the previous year. Total these associated points. And the hush fell over the crowd. Isn't it interesting to look over the past year of your life through this paper? Maybe it brought up memories of something that happened last year that you'd forgotten about or thought you'd put aside. Maybe you didn't realize that such a thing as starting school or ending a job or having trouble with the in-laws created stress or problems. Maybe you never thought that going on vacation, what, that's stress? We can go on, but look there at the bottom. 150 points or less means a relatively low amount of life change and low susceptibility to stress-induced health breakdown. 150 to 300 points implies about a 50% chance of a major health breakdown in the next 2 years. 300 points or more raises the odds of about 80% according to the Holmes-Ray statistical prediction model. So guess what? Stress puts pressure on you physically. It puts pressure on you emotionally. So take that as kind of as a gauge as we go along. So let's keep moving through here as you finish. Unless there's someone who wants to share anything that they learned from doing that about the past year. Was it higher than you thought or lower than you thought?
I got married this year. I didn't realize there was a lot of stress involved.
Yeah.
I think when you lose 3 members in your family within a year and 6 months, and then you have a nephew that's cardiac arrest, and intensive care, and dies twice, and you're praying to bring him back, and now he has an electric heart.
Wow.
According to yourself. So
It was still relatively low with that.
But even miracle,
things bundle.
but even a miracle brings stress.
Oh, yeah, they do. And that wasn't.
Well, mine was 136.
Yes.
Something that wasn't on here was
Mine
loss
lost
of a
positive
pet.
changes like
Loss of a pet? No, they never put that on this inventory. But you're right, that is a highly stressful time, and it should be on this list.
things that were positive, but still stressful.
Anybody else that you notice about this inventory? Higher or lower than what you thought? How many people your score was higher than what you thought? How many people was like, yeah, it's lower than what I thought? I guess I'm under a lot of stress. Let's keep moving on. So again, we're dealing with these three things, these four things. It's our response to a situation. It's our worry, our concern, our fret, or our fear. And fear is based on a reaction to an external stimulus having an internal response. Sometimes you cannot control your reaction, true? Just like in this picture. That's fear. Not only fear for the kid hanging on outside the airplane as it lands, but the pilot sitting there staring at him. Fear is a funny thing, isn't it? Fear will move us. It'll also paralyze us. But fear, sometimes we allow ourselves to get to the point in our anxiety that we become so afraid that we feel like doing nothing. We shut down. So again, we're looking at stress, produces anxiety, but there's that concept of fear over here that kind of freezes everything up, isn't it? So let's go on and look here. Now, this is a triangle that I put together through my years of doing work, and it's based upon the Holy Trinity, but I want to review it tonight before we go on to the next thing. Power. There's a lot of power in pain, especially when we feel like it's unfair and there's persecution, this shouldn't be happening to me. And power can be a very good thing. But power can also be a very negative thing. And when we empower our anxiety, or empower our problems, or get the negative power away to the stress and anxiety in our lives, what are we doing to ourselves? Because the common thing is that we actually struggle right over here in our perspective. Now, when we're talking about our perspective, we're talking about our reality. And when we're talking about our reality, we're talking about thinking errors. Have you ever thought and worried and fretted over something and found out you were wrong? What a waste of time. I can't believe that. Or you worry about, you have to go back to talk to somebody, and they may be upset or offended, and, they're not. You ever do that to yourself? You over-worry, you overthink. Folks, on the negative side of reality, what we're really saying is what? God, we know better than you. My perspective is better than yours, God. And when we go on the negative side of power, we're saying, God, I need to be in control because I don't trust you to be in control. And so we have control issues, we have power issues, we have trust issues. Anybody here, are you like that? Anybody here have power issues? I like to be in control. Anybody here have trust issues? I could ask your kids. They can tell if you have a power issue or control issue, right? How many times have I heard, I just can't trust people? I just can't trust. I've been hurt so bad, I just can't trust. That's a power play, folks. For someone that says, I just can't trust, what they're saying is, I'm not even going to trust God with my relationships. That's the ultimate playing of power. If we don't realize it from a spiritual standpoint, that we are playing power with God. We are trying to define God's reality for us rather than allow God to have His reality for us. And typically the key thing to struggle with is right over here on this far corner. It's called pain. Is pain a positive or a negative? It's both. But which one do we make it the most? Negative. So we already begin with a pain in our life. We produce a negative. And then we try to control it, produce another negative. Then we try to think our way through it, produce another negative. So what do we have left there? We have a lot of negative thinking. We get caught up in that thinking pattern. We think we're right. We try to figure something out. And what are we missing? We're dealing with the physical, we're dealing with the emotional, but we're not dealing with the what? We're not allowing God to have power. We're not allowing God to speak to us through reality. At the time, again, that sometimes we need to hear spiritual truth, we avoid the church. And at times we can't give our pain over to the producer, the king, so you went through the pain of the cross for me. I'm going to trust you in my pain. We don't turn our pain into a positive. Anybody here ever struggle or know some of the struggles with negative self-talk? Self-image? Well, in the future, we're going to do a little bit of that. So prepare yourself. I will call upon some volunteers in the weeks to come up here and do some reading. We're going to learn how to read the Psalms, folks. You need to learn how to read it aloud. You need to walk through your house and read those things. Well, I'm also going to teach you how to use your mirror. Anybody have a mirror at home? I just love those things. Everybody has one. That's why I like to use them. I'm going to bring a mirror here, and we're going to learn how to talk to ourselves in the mirror. Ooh, get ready. Anxiety coming, right? But first, I want to take some time. It's going to take a little bit of time that we have left. I want to show you a short video clip. How many here have ever seen the Butterfly Circus? Yes! As you watch this short film, I want you to be mindful of anyone who might be in stress. This is a movie set in very hard economic times, where people are begging just to live. And if you've ever been in hard economic times, you understand some stress. I want you to see the lives of the people that are impacted through the stress and the choices and decisions. But I also want you to see the one attitude in the one man who changes everything. So I'm going to share with you the Butterfly Circus.
Sammy, you're breaking my heart. We're all the circus you need, kid.
But they arrived. Tell me, Mr. Mendez.
Why not? Let's go.
Okay, boys, time to get me a date with the bearded lady. Who's with me?
Great Riches, come, sit down. I tell you all about your fate. Great Riches, come.
We're gonna come get you now! You are my little boy. I'm gonna get you if I can!
Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. We have the best freak show in town. Mr. Pete Robinson. You got the Glenwood Band. Step right on in. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. You got Baby Lulu. Mr. Pete Robinson. The Glenwood Band. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in. We have the best show in town. Come on in. Come on in. We have the best freak show.
Like a large heifer. She's a woman of extraordinary weight, has a peculiar appetite for whole chickens. Now, down this way. The painted man, whose world travels can be seen on every inch of his body, from head to toe. And now, ladies Ladies and gentlemen, gather in. A perversion of nature. A man, if you could even call him that, whom God himself has turned his back upon. I give you the limbless man.
Look at that.
Look at it.
Move along, kids.
You are magnificent.
Hey, get away from him!
What's the matter with you?
It's all right. No harm in it. My fault. Maybe I got a little too close. Eh, friend? You have a good evening now.
You better get a hold of yourself before the next show, gimp.
Real nice, Will. Seems you changed your mind about joining one of them fancy shows. Huh?
What are you saying?
Don't you know nothing? That was Mendes. You just spit on the showman from the Butterfly Circus. Butterfly, butterfly. You kill me, Will. I'm hungry. I'm gonna get me some cotton candy.
A man, if you can call him that, whom God himself has turned his back upon. The limbless man!
Muy bien.
Boss.
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias indeed.
It's going to be delicious.
Yes. May I have this dance? Thank you so much. Poppy.
Would you get my trunk? It's so heavy.
But it's easier for you because you're so strong. Da! There's a dead man in the truck! What?
Well, now, look at this. This is wonderful. Come on over by the fire. Warm up a bit, little man.
I'm Sammy. What's your name?
I'm Will.
Where's your arms and legs?
Sammy.
What, Mama? Is he gonna be in our circus now?
Maybe I will.
Hold on a minute. We don't have a sideshow here.
What do you mean? Every circus has one. People come from all over the place to see us.
And why do they come, Will?
But yours could be different.
No. There is nothing inspiring about immense imperfections on display. See, Will, we're happy you're here.
And you can stay as long as you like. But I do run a different show.
And now, one of the greatest displays of human contortion ever seen. It is my pleasure to introduce Anna, Queen of the Air. And the strongest man you'll ever see. Of the flying trapeze and the oldest performer in the air, Papi!
See you at the fairgrounds, 2 days only. Come on by, Butterfly Circus, 2 days only.
How do? My boy here would sure like to say hello to the strongest man in town.
Well, I'm Sugar Daddy Stronger, but I'd make a close second.
Are you in the show too, mister?
No, not exactly.
Oh.
We best be going now. Thank you kindly.
You bet.
Wow, did you see that, Dad? I'm gonna be the strongest man in the world someday. I'm gonna be just like that man. I'll lift anything I want to.
Yeah, boy, you can do whatever you want. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, what this world needs is a little wonder.
Look, Mama, I'll take it.
Splendid, isn't it? The way they move, full of strength, color and grace. They're astounding. But you, cursed from birth, a man, if you can call him that, who God himself turned his back upon. Stop it! Why would you say that? Because you believe it. But if you could only see the beauty that can come from ashes. Wait! I'll pull you down, I swear I will!
no good to me, so get out!
You're good enough for me, Dollface. Here you go.
But they're different from me. Yes, you do have an advantage. The greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph.
I can't find my caterpillar. Where is he?
He's right there. In the cocoon, see? He'll be fine. You won't even recognize him when he comes out.
Oh, wow.
Hey! Hey, George! Poppy! I need help to cross! Can anyone help me? Hey, George! Can you help me? Hey, where are you going? What's the matter with you? Just gonna leave me here? I think you'll manage. What? I guess I'll just magically get up, huh?
Hey, George, Poppy, how's the water? Time for a swim. Look! Hey!
Hey, Will, you coming in?
Hey, Nico, come in! Will!
Look, I can swim! Look at the barrel on that side! Here he is!
Your eyes will witness this fine evening our bravest soul as he cheats death by ascending 50 feet into the air and leaping into this pool of water.
bad, mister. Or were you scared? It was so high.
I'll try it. I can do it.
Sweetie, you can do anything.
Did it hurt when you hit the water?
There you go, Sammy.
Anxiety, anguish. What did you see in that short film? What did it say to your heart? What did it say to your soul? Say it a little louder.
They were making fun of him in the beginning, and then he just came and he showed everyone that he was not only their arms and legs, that he could go through and become stronger and make everyone reward him for his strength and see the beauty of him inside of his heart.
So even though in the beginning they were making fun of him, by the end they were coming to him. They saw greatness out of brokenness, even though he had no arms and legs. Powerful little short story, isn't it? So what's the one thing that makes a difference, no matter what level of stress, no matter what level of anxiety? Was that physical power? Was that emotional power? What did our ringmaster pull out of each one of these people?
Best.
Pulled out the best? By giving them what? Hope, courage, by believing in them. My goal by the end of these 4 weeks is you're going to be empowered to give hope to people who are stressed, who are anxious, who are broken, who are depressed. Because guess what? You don't have to become a therapist to help people in need. I would encourage you even to watch, so we may watch this again, but I want to encourage you to watch it through the one that they didn't show. They left out Poppy, who swings on the bars. But each one of those people were done. A woman pregnant as a prostitute. It's a little boy, Sam, worried about his butterfly. I want to encourage you, as you go into this week, be a carrier, be a purveyor of hope. So let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, as we close this time, we do want to be about your business. And Lord, at times we get caught up in the physical and the emotional, and we kind of set you aside. Our Bibles stay closed. Our prayers get weak. But Lord, your heart for us is to always see the best in people, always be able to see the wonder and the power of our God in no matter what situation we have or we face. So Lord, I pray that as we begin to look through our stresses and our anxiety, that we look at how, Lord, to really bring this to the foot of the cross, lay it there and leave it there, and not take it back up, but to truly do what we say we do, which is have faith, and learn to live that faith out in a new way, in a powerful way that's transforming, as Vicki said. So we give you this night. We pray your blessing upon it as we return to our homes. And lead us, Lord, as we go into this week and return next week to look further at what we sometimes do to ourselves that causes you to cry and weep, Lord. So we give you thanks and praise and honor and glory. Amen and amen. Vicky?